Good morning. Thanks for coming on back to the Damon Bruce Show here on Damon Bruce Plus. It is wonderful to have you. Last night, Larry Krueger and I were doing a home and home. I was on his channel, and in the middle of our conversation, whatever we were talking about kind of got turned around on a dime when the story that Shams and Anthony Slater put out on The Athletic started talking about Bob Myers, and I want to read you the tweet that Larry and I discussed, and you and I are about to talk about right here. Last night, Shams tweeted out that the Warriors and president of basketball operations, Bob Myers, have had no substantial contract extension talks in months, and that the sides are bracing for the likelihood that Myers could walk away from the franchise. Okay, well, this is something that I've been talking about for a very, very long time. This is something that Ray Ratto and I talked about extensively on 95.7 The Game back in the day. And it's something we got to keep on talking about because it looks like things could be changing. It is a great Bay Area mind in sports, Bill Walsh, that once said it's always better to say goodbye a year too early than it is a year too late. And, everyone applies that to players. But maybe Bob is applying that to himself in his own mind because, look, the Golden State Warriors are about to enter a very, very difficult phase of their entire run here. And I'm not saying that Bob is smart enough to be the first guy off the sinking ship because the ship isn't sinking, but paddling it, running this ship is about to be harder than ever before and more restrictive than ever before. And we'll get into some of those details here in just a minute. This is a very complicated job, and it's a complicated job that Bob has negotiated wonderfully. Now, you might have individual bones to pick with some decisions that he made, but 4 titles in 9 years is pretty hard to sneeze at or say, that's not good enough for me. Because that is an amount of success that is so rare if you can't appreciate it. And all the chess moves he made to make sure that that happened, you just haven't been paying close attention to how important he really is to the franchise. Having said all of that, he is not the only person in the world who can do the job, but he's done the job so well with such an aplomb and has represented himself and the franchise so wonderfully, it's hard to think of this team going forward without him. So what a fork in the road that this could really represent. I do think Bob is the kind of guy who is going to look around and take what he believes is the most interesting opportunity. I don't think this is all just money-based. I really don't. I never got that from Bob Myers. I never picked up that money was his Jesus, and if he weren't attached to the highest dollar amount that any general manager across all sports makes, he would be deeply offended by that. I think he realizes how much money Joe Lacob has spent on keeping a winner together. He's got to be very appreciative of that. Bob has been fabulously compensated the entire time he has been with the Warriors. So how much more fabulously compensated do you really need to be? And also, having said all that, Joe Lacob bought something for $400 million that is now worth $7 billion. So I don't want to hear him dickering over a pile of $5 million, $10 million, $15 million. I mean, that is small potatoes to keep this going. In terms of there not being any talk between Team Myers and Team Warriors, that doesn't necessarily surprise me. I read the article and they exchanged some figures a couple of months ago, but Bob isn't the type of guy to interject his own agenda into the season and certainly not the postseason. So I don't think that the timing of all of this or the lack of timing of any negotiation right now is that emblematic of these two sides are so far apart they're not even talking anymore. I don't think that's happening here. I also see Bob is smart enough to want a cooling off period between the season ending and him sitting down with Joe one more time to hammer any kind of deal out. And I'll tell you, and I have been talking about this with several people who are connected, and not just around the NBA, but around sports and entertainment. And I've heard countless rumors attached to what might lie in Bob Myers' future. I'm confirming none of these, but I'll tell you what I've heard. I've heard that he has a handshake agreement with Steve Ballmer that the minute he wants complete control of the Los Angeles Clippers, there could even be an equity stake in there for him. It is his. He could have that. The Clippers would bring him in immediately. I can't think of many NBA teams that honestly wouldn't. I heard that he could be asked to come back to CAA and run not just the CAA sports department, but maybe the entire talent agency, and that's the biggest talent agency in the world. I've heard that Bob might want to start his own talent agency and be, the next competitor. He's watched, LeBron's friends do this. He's watched CAA. He's been an agent. He knows negotiations from every conceivable angle, and maybe he wants to build his own company. I've heard that. I've heard that there is interest possibly in Amazon bringing Bob Myers in to control a huge part of their about-to-be growing sports division. I have also heard that when he went and sat down and did some stuff with Omaha Productions and dabbled in some podcasting, he really liked it. And Peyton Manning was literally just like blown away after, splitting a sandwich with him one day at lunch, and was ready to hire him right on the spot to basically be the president of Omaha Productions. So, Bob Myers' future, his opportunities, they go to infinity. I mean, they really do. When you look around at all the different things that he could do, it's something else. Before we move on, let me take time to thank this gentleman right here. This is Ike. Ike sells love and sandwiches. The love is for free. The sandwiches he's going to ask you for a little bit money for, but I'll tell you, it is worth every dollar. They are delicious. Whatever your taste in a sandwich is, believe me, he can meet it. They're fantastic. Go to an Ike's near you. Download the Ike's app and have a sandwich delivered to you in so many different locations. So go get yourself a delicious lunch and tell Ike that your buddy Damon sent you. Now, tonight, when you're sitting around maybe watching a little NBA action, we got Game 2, Lakers and Nuggets tonight. Last night, how good was Jimmy Butler? We'll get to some NBA more stuff here in just a second. But wash it on down with a little blackened whiskey, baby. A little something to sip on, a little something to make cocktails with. You want it neat. You want it on the rocks. You want a little whiskey and Coke. It fits every single conceivable glass and style of whiskey drinking that you could think of. The blackened, the rye, the cask conditioned, it's all spectacular stuff. We will get more into the blackened sign when we hop into Club Plus and start looking at some of your texts a little bit later on. Or I should say, what's going on in the chat. And as always, the chat room is booming before the show even starts. You guys are hysterical. You gals are hysterical. You're gathering before the show even begins to start talking with each other. What a cool little community we're building over here. It means a ton. For the Bob Myers doesn't matter that much crowd, and I have seen that pop up on my Twitter timeline as people talk about the story that came out last night. The Bob Myers hasn't mattered that much crowd. All I can tell you is you are among the least enlightened, least informed, didn't quite know what you were ever really looking at or talking about when it comes to how the Warriors have been run. And that's fine. A lot of people don't look beyond the court to appreciate anything about a basketball team. And that's a fine way to approach sports. But again, it's not a complete way to look at sports. Bob Myers has been the holy grail of calmness, of reasonable, of a personable approach at every conceivable level of how a franchise communicates with agents, with players, with the league, with media, with fans, with owners. Bob checks every single box about as well as any GM I have ever seen. You know, there are a lot of GMs who might be good behind the scenes doing the business, but out in front of the media, they're a disaster. With around fans, they're a disaster. If you go up and you talk to Bob Myers, you're going to notice that he shakes you with his right hand while he's putting his left hand on your shoulder. The man builds personal connections with everyone, and it's not an act. It happens effortlessly. It's who he is. You can't fake that. He's a guiding light and a guiding hand of humility for an owner and a team and a coach and a whole bunch of egos that would be very easy to trip over if you dealt with them incorrectly. Bob Myers is just the steadiest hand of everyone. Relax. And that is so valuable in a world, a high-pressure world of sports. There's a reason why the Warriors have been incredibly successful. And if we were building tiers of success, obviously Curry's on that one line. You could say that an owner sets a tone for a franchise, and obviously the owner changing, to Joe Lacob has been great for the Golden State Warriors. Steve Kerr, Bob Myers, they're all right at the very top of the pyramid of why this has all worked. And if you don't understand it, because all you care about is who's on the court, but not necessarily how the team that is on the court is assembled, you're just not enlightened. That's not an element that you're prepared to talk about, because the steps that Bob Myers took to build a team that was a champion before Kevin Durant arrived, the steps that he took to then add Kevin Durant, and then the steps that he took around Kevin Durant's departure that eventually became Andrew Wiggins, which has delivered a post-Kevin Durant championship, which everybody agreed would not happen. It happened. Adding Kuminga might not have done much this year, but it's a player that I like. Has he been perfect? Have every single one of Bob Myers' decisions resonated with a future Hall of Famer in the wait? No. There is no perfect. Perfect is unavailable in any element of team building. You will always strike out 2 more times than you hit a home run when you're drafting players. It's just the way sports has always worked. So to point to any one decision and try to define Bob Myers as that, and completely ignore that he is an architect of 4 titles in 9 years, is just lunacy. 4 titles in 9 years. And all I can tell you is, if that is not good enough for you, what team are you rooting for? What team floats your boat if 4 titles in 9 years isn't enough for you to admit, hey, that guy did a hell of a job? How Durant specifically was added, and then someone was like, well, Bob Myers didn't do that. The whole team flew down there, and it was the Hampton Five, and Draymond Green got him. No. Of course the players being there mattered, and the players mattered to Kevin Durant. And Bob is smart enough to know when to back away and not take credit for things, that his fingerprints are all over. Again, it's that humility. He is not jumping into championship team photos like, look at me, look at what I built. You'll always see Bob Myers and Steve Kerr standing off to the side. They want it to be about the players. The master strokes of moves that were made around the addition of Durant and the departure of Durant, Bob Myers saw so far down the chessboard that, other agents haven't even started playing when Bob started making his moves to bring Durant and then to subtract Durant. It's brilliant shit when you go ahead and you look at what had happened, the anatomy of those deals, the deconstruction of the Durant deal. It's fascinating. It's a little bit too complicated. I would need a flow chart behind me to explain all the machinations of what that was. It was incredible that it was done. So again, if the Warriors' success does not fit your standards, I don't know who the hell it is you root for out there or what satisfies you as a sports fan. I want to talk a little bit about Joe Lacob and the decision that's in front of him. Again, the man is now owning a team that is worth more than every other team that plays basketball on the globe. He is the most valuable basketball team on the planet. So to just turn around and flip the keys to that to your son because you think he's ready, I think it would be a mistake. And I actually do like Kirk Lacob, who is not just a my daddy's in charge here rich kid. He's a grinder. He does really put in man hours, and to meet Kirk Lacob is to meet an impressive young man. But would Kirk Lacob be hired by any other NBA franchise to replace their general manager? The answer feels like a no. And so to me, it would just be a huge mistake of Joe Lacob to install his son as a general manager. If that is the plan, it would basically, the phrase political capital. Here's the thing. The phrase political capital used to mean something. The world's so divided right now that, no matter what the next president does, if you didn't vote for him, you hate him. There used to be this 100-day grace period where a president had all the new political capital that they could have, and how they spent it, how quickly they burned through that political capital would sort of explain how smoothly things got started or how choppy it became. To me, Joe Lacob, who I think everyone appreciates as an owner, even if you want to call him meddlesome, he would destroy his political capital with the Warriors fan base should he just install his son. And to me, it's just too big of a job. It's too precious of a task to try to find the right way to land the most important career in the history of the franchise, and that's Steph Curry's career. Steph does not need someone new learning on the job as his next general manager if Bob Myers really is to leave. Mike Dunleavy Jr. Has been Bob Myers' right-hand man through an awful lot of the last couple seasons. As a matter of fact, I saw that he was just representing the Warriors in the GM meetings in Chicago this past week, and he's done that in the past, so he could be the next guy in waiting. To me, the next GM, if there is to be a next GM, and Bob really does go somewhere, that has to be a comprehensive search that dots every franchise in the NBA for ready to go, up and come. It can't just be, all right, Bob's out, Kirk is in. That would be, to me, a disastrous way to go about the decision. And another reason why it would be hard to install anyone, Kirk Lacob, Captain James T. Kirk, anyone, any Kirk you could think of, any Lacob you could think, anyone that you could think of, if you did take the Warriors GM job today, what you do have is one of the most difficult, choppy waters of a team's competitive life cycle to navigate that you could possibly step into as a first-time general manager. The Warriors are essentially being suffocated by their own success, their own star power, and their own longevity. That is, those three elements, star power, success, and longevity, are killing the Warriors. You would think a team that was able to keep that together for its fans would be rewarded, but that is not how the NBA has done business. As a matter of fact, the NBA is now conducting a level of CBA business that is designed to punish success more than it is, hey, keep that good thing going because it's really working. It's brutal out there. It is brutal out there. I saw and I'm going to read a little of this to you, but it's so many numbers. It gets really eggheady. It's very complicated. But a conversation that Tim Kawakami and Danny LaRue had on, either it's a podcast transcript or they put it out as an article. Fascinating stuff. If you, how about this? If you are going to be talking about what the Warriors should do this offseason in terms of what their roster could possibly look like next year, you can't just see that Giannis video where he's like, ooh, going to the Warriors. That might be interesting, and think, oh, just go ahead and add Giannis then. The amount of restrictions that are on how the Warriors can even field their team and keep it together as you sort of know it are It's almost an insurmountable task. It really is. So I want to read to you from Tim and Danny, and just stick with me here. It's going to get a little heady. It's going to get a little word heavy, but it all proves the point that if you don't know that this is basically the steps that need to be taken, you shouldn't be talking about what the Warriors should do in an offseason. Because it's more complicated than just, hey, trade that guy, add these 3 guys, and everything's going to be okay. It's a lot more complicated than that. We know that they have a massive luxury tax bill from the article, coming due somewhere far over $400 million, counting salaries and tax penalties next season, unless they do some radical slashing. And we know that the new CBA has increased limitations on high-spending teams like the Warriors, maybe almost expressively targeting the Warriors. Not counting the player options for either Draymond Green or Dante DiVincenzo, the Warriors owe about $181 million to 10 players plus the 19th pick in the upcoming 2023 draft. That means the Warriors are over the new second tax stage even before committing any money to retain Green, re-sign any other free agent contracts, or bring in new talent via minimum contracts. That's slightly over $400 million right there. If we're estimating Draymond Green comes back at the same salary as his player option or a similar salary over extended years because he opts out to opt back in with the Warriors, you're looking at $400 million before adding 4 or 5 players to just round out the roster. That's Curry, Draymond, Clay, Wiggins, and Jordan Poole. And obviously Looney's still under contract. Further complicating the situation is the Warriors cannot use the taxpayer mid-level exception, so only minimums for new additions other than draft picks. Well, if you're saying, well, you got to wait for a guy to get bought out and then maybe he wants to come and sign for a song with the Warriors, well, teams over the tax cannot sign a player who was bought out during the regular season and made more than about $12.2 million, which means just about everyone who would be cut at the we're cutting budget and cutting guys because of how much money they make. So the non-taxpayer mid-level exception will not be there for the Warriors. The Warriors have not exactly done a lot of shopping in the buyout market, but now they basically can't. They can't for anyone who made more than $12 million. And why would you be buying out NBA players who were making less than $12 million? Like, making less than $12 million on an NBA roster means you're like on your rookie deal almost. So it is beyond complicated. The job that either Bob Myers will step back into or a new GM will step into. It is incredibly difficult waters to navigate. It's really something else. By the way, NBA playoffs, like we were saying, they continue tonight. Lakers, Nuggets, Denver leading 1-0. Can they go up 2-0 on their home court? Last night, Jimmy Butler was unbelievable. Like he's pretty much been in every game that he's played in this postseason. There is something about postseason Jimmy buckets. It's true. You know, like there's Game 6 Clay, which might not be true anymore, and there is just playoff Jimmy. And that is true. Jimmy Butler is a really good NBA player in the regular season, and he turns into one of the best players in the NBA in the postseason. Guy's an animal out there, just a dog. Celtics find themselves in another 1-0 hole, having lost an opener on their home court. They just went through this with the Sixers. So, you know, fascinating stuff going on there. Just so you know, there is no Bay Area baseball today, none at all to speak of. Giants did finish off the Phillies yesterday to complete their first sweep of the season. And the only news I have about the A's is how poorly their landing in Nevada might actually be going, and we'll share that with you at the very end. Again, we're going to get into Club Plus a little bit later, but I know a lot of you are probably, wanting to talk about what is going on with the Warriors, and we always got a very smart crowd in here asking smart questions. So let me just quickly say right here, hello and good morning. Is it R.I.P. Cougar Rebel or RIP Cougar Rebel? I heard Larry say it differently than I normally do. Don't think that Lacob wants to pay him. And I kind of figured Bob wouldn't come back. You don't let a GM with that type of resume work all season on an expiring contract. Yeah, unless that's what the GM wanted. Bob is again, this is chess. This isn't checkers. And Bob might have just said, look, in the name of I've got things to work on here, if we don't get anything agreed to, that's fine with me. We'll wait into the offseason. But the word is now the decision is going to come in the next few weeks, and it's going to be a major fork in the road. Postman and Capitola helping the show out. Hit that like button, people. Absolutely crush that like button. Please crush the like button. From HR, Bob isn't needed. Curry and Wiggins are locked up, and he's bad at drafting. Okay, that's the dumbest thing I'll read all day. The Bob isn't needed. You don't know how this works. And find me the general manager who never missed a draft pick anywhere in the lottery. Anywhere. Do you like Draymond Green? Did he miss that draft pick? Do you like Klay Thompson? Is that a draft pick that he missed on? Do you like Moses Moody? Do you want Jonathan Kuminga to play more? You can't argue that you want Jonathan Kuminga to play more and say Bob missed that draft pick. You might be frustrated with Jordan Poole, but he got picked at 19, and normally the player that gets picked at 19 is in Greece at this point in time in his career. Drafting NBA players, look at it this way. Find any NBA draft where you can honestly say 8 first-round picks turned into really good NBA players. It's hard to do. Picking basketball players who are successful in this league is really hard to do. Smiley Dan says it'll be Dunleavy to play yes man to Lacob and Sons. Look, if that's what Joe Lacob is looking for, I don't think that's how Joe Lacob got here. But if that's what is to be the future is going to be over quickly, because an owner, I think Joe Lacob wants to have influence. He wants to be in the room. He wants to be at the workout. I don't think he wants a yes man. He's been too successful in business to just want to be surrounded by bootlickers. People who are that successful don't become surrounded by bootlickers. I really don't think so. Otis Bird III, dropping a 50-cent vocabulary word, a myriad of options. Thank you, Otis Bird. You're right. There is a massive myriad of options. Would you say he had a plethora of options? You wouldn't lie to me if we did not have a plethora. I hope all of you who enjoyed the Three Amigos enjoyed that El Guapo impersonation. I just think that Bob Myers is the kind of guy that once you do business with him, you just should not stop doing business with him. That's how good he is at this. And again, being a GM is so much more than drafting the right player. If that's all you see when you look at what a general manager does, you don't see the full racetrack. There's so much more to a general manager's day than just drafting the right player. And it goes to understanding the cap, the new CBA rules, all the chess moves that, again, got you to Durant and then out of Durant for further assets that help you win a title in the post-Durant era. It is being an armchair quarterback, too difficult egos to manage. Ding, 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 ding. Draymond Green, I'm talking about you. Jordan Poole, talking about you. We all know that Steph Curry is basically the easiest superstar to manage of all time, but maybe part of that ease comes with the delicate hand that Bob Myers has over this roster at all times. You know, he's a guy who is just really, really impressive. I mean, so impressive. And it's, to me, the kind of it's the kind of thing that I understand why people don't understand this. I really do. And I understand that, you didn't work for the Warriors flagship station and spend as many nights in the hallway as I have talking to Bob and going up to him and talking to him at games. I know that you don't know Bob Myers the way I do, and I don't claim to be Bob's friend. We have never been to dinner together or anything like that. We were supposed to go to lunch together, which he has been postponing, which means he must be very busy right now, which maybe means he's about to leave. But Bob is such an impressive person. Beyond, he's the general manager of the Golden State Warriors. Like, you would be thrilled if Bob Myers was the principal at the school your kid went to. You'd be like, wow, this principal is a really impressive principal. Bob will be successful in no matter what he chooses to do. And that, I think, is evident in all the options that seem to be appearing in front of him. Somebody says, here again, I'm going to stop going to you because I just don't want to rip you apart, but HR, Bob gets credit for being associated with these wins, but he didn't build this team. Dude, stop it. He added Kevin Durant, who added championships. When Kevin Durant walked away with a pouty face, he then turned that into D'Angelo Russell, who he then down the chessboard flipped to Minnesota for Andrew Wiggins and the pick that became Jonathan Kuminga. And remember, this whole thing begins with the addition of Andre Iguodala. Who signed Andre Iguodala? That's right, Erwin. If there was no Bob Myers, there's no Andre Iguodala, and there's probably no dynasty. There are so many chess pieces. This guy knows how to play chess. And if sustaining success were an easy thing to do, how come whichever team wins a title doesn't go on to be a dynasty? Getting to the top of the mountain is incredibly difficult. Staying there is a near impossible task. It's incredibly difficult to stay there. So this guy has kept the Warriors in position that it's just it's very difficult. And again, this HR guy, I'm going to stop reading you, dude, because you're just way off base. And we can't have off-base people running the conversation. So Bob doesn't have a plan to fix this mess because there isn't one. We can't pay Bob for what he did in the past. Do you want to re-sign Klay Thompson? Because isn't that paying him for what he did in the past? And as I explained in vivid detail going over a Tim Kawakami thing, if you don't think this is a mess, you aren't paying fucking attention. The Warriors, from putting together a competitive roster next year, are a massive mess. They can only sign minimum players. That's it. That's it. It's not easy going forward what the Warriors have to deal with. Very, very difficult times coming. And Sporticus, who knows a thing or two, it takes great skill to manage consistent winning around large star contracts within a salary restriction. You are right, Sporticus. It's a very difficult thing to do. It's a wildly difficult thing to do. And the Warriors right now are caught in between a rock and a hard place because of their own success. Again, they're being suffocated by their own success, star power, and longevity. There aren't many teams that have the owner to just say, yeah, keep it all together, and then suffer a tax penalty that the Warriors are suffering right now. And, how much can you be suffering when you are worth $7 billion? The answer is it's just money, and money should not be the reason. And here's the thing. I don't think that Bob is just here for the money. I think Bob wants a little bit of a different opportunity. Look, he has been to the mountaintop. He has stayed there. The zenith of the Golden State Warriors as a dynasty has been reached. There is nothing really in front of them other than trying to win one more title on the downslope of the mountain. Let's be honest. Nothing lasts forever. Draymond can talk about how, me punching Jordan Poole was really bad for the Warriors all season long. I lost my voice, my credibility, and by the time I found it again, it was too late to, get all these guys out of bad habits. Yeah, that's good on a podcast. It sounds interesting. I understand why Stephen A. Smith would want that interview, but it's so much more difficult than that. It's not just, well, Draymond punched Jordan Poole and the whole thing came to, this team's getting older. They're not as talented as they used to be. They're getting out-athleted everywhere, which happens when you are dedicated to keeping an older nucleus together. I hope that Bob Myers comes back. But the truth is, if he doesn't, that's not it for the Warriors. They're not going to forfeit. There is someone else for the job. Who might be that someone else? Mike Dunleavy? Okay. Kirk Lacob? To me, why you'd want to be a team's GM instead of being groomed to be the team's next owner, I really don't understand that. That's bad career choice. But if he really wants to do that, I think it would just be a massive mistake for Joe to just be like, all right, you're ready to do it. You got to go after the best of the best of the best. You go after Toronto's Masai Ujiri. You go after the best of the best of the best. You go after, do you like the way the Oklahoma City Thunder draft? Go pay, go pay their GM more money than he could ever think of. Money should not be an object standing in the way of anything the Warriors do. And it wouldn't be an object standing in the way of what the Warriors would do if it weren't for all these new layers to the CBA that are basically cooked into it to make sure the Warriors can't keep doing what the Warriors can keep doing. Again, before you talk about roster construction and how easy it is, if you haven't read the Danny LaRue, Tim Kawakami piece in The Athletic, you shouldn't be allowed to talk about this in any chat room, in any bar, in any forum. It is more complicated than you could possibly understand. Your mind, your eyes kind of go blank as you're reading this stuff. We got a lot of people here weighing in. A lot of people here. This is Goyoto. You can hear the talking points that Joe Lacob and others will use if Dunleavy Jr. He's a lifetime experience around the NBA. Everybody doubted Bob's experience when he was hired. Yeah, you'll hear those talking points. And look, Mike Dunleavy knows the NBA. He is a smart guy. He has been around the team for a long time. He went to Duke. He's an impressive guy, too. Meet Mike Dunleavy Jr. You will be impressed. You might not have been impressed of him as a player, but as a person, as someone to meet, he's a very impressive guy. But is he ready for this difficult and complicated of a job? I don't know. Now, here's something that Larry and I actually talked about a little bit. NorCal Viking, maybe Bob goes and Kerr takes over as GM and we get a new coach. Not totally out of the realm of possibility, but I don't think that that's going to happen, only because Steve is way too much of a killer and he wants to be hunting, and you can't hunt from the GM suite the way that you can hunt from the coach's box. He wants to be in the locker room. He wants to be around players. Steve is still a player in his own mind, in his own heart, and I just don't think that after being the GM of the Phoenix Suns, he wants to necessarily do that, especially, again, to be the GM under the Golden State Warriors restrictions is to basically kind of go on a suicide mission. It's almost designed to be built to fail. It's going to make it incredibly hard for the Warriors to continue looking like anything that you believe you recognize. We'll get into more of the chat when we get into Club Plus, but there are just a couple other things I want to let you know about here today before we tip our cap and already say goodbye to everyone listening on the podcast. Here's something we never talk about, that 49ers quarterback situation. Albert Breer says, at best, Brock Purdy could miss a good chunk of the summer and be hustling to get back for the opener. At worst, one of the two presumed backups will either start the season, Darnold or Lance. And, is it going to be Darnold? Is it going to be Trey Lance? To me, I just hope Brock Purdy's ready to go in week 1, but he is going to miss an awful lot of the summer workouts, which means Trey Lance and Darnold have this opportunity, the two of them, to battle each other. I just think that when we get down to the nitty-gritty of what Kyle Shanahan wants, Kyle sort of conned himself into thinking he wanted a true athletic hybrid quarterback more than he wants a 3, 5, 7-step drop passer who throws underneath accurately. That's what Purdy is, and that's when things really started working. That's what I think Sam Darnold could be. That's why I think he might have a leg up on Trey Lance. And look, Trey Lance has so far been a better idea than he has been a return on investment. And Kyle's got wanderlust when it comes to quarterbacks. If he sees anything he remotely likes of Darnold, if Darnold reminds him more of what Brock Purdy was successful doing than Trey Lance reminds him of what Brock Purdy became successful doing, Darnold could be your week 1 starter. We'll have a little bit more time between now and the beginning of the season to talk about that, but here we are again in year whatever of the Kyle Shanahan era, and it's still who's going to be your quarterback. It's the story that never, never ends. Neither is the story that I always like to say should end with fuck John Fisher no matter what happens. I want to just share this with you from the Nevada Independent, written by Tabitha Muller, M-U-L-L-E-R, Muller. Nevada lawmakers have yet to introduce legislation to bring the Oakland A's to Las Vegas because they're only willing to contribute up to $195 million in transferable tax credits for the stadium construction funding, not the full almost $400 million the team is seeking. In other words, the Nevada legislature hasn't even had the meeting that they need to have, and when they do have that meeting, it will be about not giving the A's the money that they expect to get. Watch them screw that up too. Watch the A's not be loved in Nevada, and again, Nevada, if you're smart, you will not come within 100 miles of doing business with John Fisher. You will stay away, and you will just wait for an expansion. Get your own team. Don't come with one that's got John Fisher's fingerprints all over it. He should be forced to sell to 2 ownership groups, one of the 2 which would be committed to keeping the A's in Oakland. The A's, by the way, in their series with the Diamondbacks, claim to have drawn 11,000 fans, not per game, for the entirety of the 3-game series. They are claiming about in the neighborhood of 11,000 fans. That is a lie. There is no way that there were 4,000 fans that attended that series. I've seen the pictures. Yesterday, I saw a picture of, it looked like a school choir, a school band in the middle of the outfield singing the national anthem. There were more kids singing the national anthem than there were fans about to watch the game. There were more kids singing the national anthem than there were fans standing with their hands over their heart for the national anthem. We've gotten to a lot of stuff today. We went long, not Larry Krueger level we went long, but, we've done about 45 minutes here, and that goes on the podcast, which means thank you so much for listening. We are about to get into the chat, which is still flowing, and we'll do all that as we enter Club Plus. But for those listening, I say thank you very much for listening to the podcast, and please do remember that sports don't build character, they reveal it. And like that, he's gone. Oh, yeah. Now, wait, disco lights. Ba-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. Welcome to Club Plus, everybody. 2-drink minimum. And, of course, that drink is blackened whiskey. If you want to get a sandwich, bring your own Ikes. But this is how we roll when we go to the bar. Pick up a little blackened, baby. Let's get back into some really, really good conversation that is going on here. Let's see. No, we're not. No more comments. Everyone stop talking to HR. The man does not know how any of this works. It's very obvious. He is either just trolling everyone or isn't worth talking to about all of this. This is, again, one last point. You can't pay him for his personality. Bob Myers' personality is one of his greatest assets. And on a team with such great personality, having someone to control that personality is crucial. You've clearly never built a team. You've clearly never run a group meeting at all. Thank you very much, Anthony. Dropping a little super chat in there. Appreciate you very, very much. This, what do we got here? This is Rip Cougar Rebel. Bob basically indirectly traded D'Angelo Russell for Wiggins and Kuminga. Yeah, well, that wasn't indirectly. That was the trade. He indirectly watched Kevin Durant walk away for Wiggins and Kuminga. It's incredible. It's incredible. That one move alone was incredible. Here's a very good point by Never Go Full Jeff. Literally, half the time Bob has been in charge of their picks, they're coming at the end of the first round. You don't get it. You know? I'm going to hold off on reading the rest of that, but it's the truth. Now, did the James Wiseman pick not work out? Well, we don't know what James Wiseman's career is going to look like, but obviously it didn't work out for the Warriors. But, man, there is no – again, if 4 championships in 9 seasons isn't good enough for you, I cordially invite you to fuck off. I mean, cordial invitation. Big cursive, flowery, F-U-C-K-O-F-F. You just have an – how about this? You think winning is as easy as it is for you when you play NBA 2K. You do. That's who you are. You think winning is so easy that why would you ever stop winning once you start? You just don't get it. It's a level of complication which would literally leave people crying if it were up to them to keep this thing going. So, A. Tommy. Not the Tommy, but A. Tommy. A. Tommy. Dropping in a 10 spot there saying, loved the Three Amigos reference. Jefe, would you say I had a plethora? Thank you very much. Please get the Pound It soundbite working. By the way, I'm going to tell you right now, Mrs. Plus is up to things. No breaking news to share yet, but Mrs. Plus is up to things. Daddy's going to get some new toys soon. That's good coffee. We have here from Goyoto. Kerr is a very good people person, but Myers is the epitome of an organizational tone setter. He helps smooth over all the rough edges, and people may not notice that impact he had until it's gone. I mean, we could almost end the show right there with that alone. That is, I wish I had said it like that in the I'm talking portion of the show earlier like that, because that is perfectly said. Bob Myers has "you don't understand how important he was until he was gone" written all over him. And I hope he wants to stay, and I hope Joe wants to pay him to stay. I really do. But if you're Bob, you might be smart enough to think, I've done as much as I can. And there's a level of going to be appreciated somewhere else that might mean more to him than any dollar amount to stay here with half of a spoiled fucking fan base that doesn't even understand how good they've had it. I mean, I know for a lot of you, you showed up buying Warriors tickets in 2014, but it's more complicated than what you've seen. Jingle, jangle, Rob C. Hopping on a plane, going to miss Club Plus. Tell Bob I'll pay for your lunch with him. You want to go to the French Laundry? Thank you very much. I believe we'll get a salt shaker at the French Laundry for $19.99, but I really do appreciate that. That is going to turn into an Ike sandwich probably for me and Mrs. Plus a little bit later on. We're both trying to cut back on the calories, so maybe we'll split a sandwich. So, Joe Schmo says, Damon, I've caught up with the show. I loved how you did local 2K sports. I have the 2K12. That's when I was in there, baby. That's when I was in there. Laura asks, does Bob want to retire or go to a different team? Again, Bob's options are so endless. What he might want to do next goes to infinity. He can do anything he wants to next. Who wouldn't hire Bob Myers to be an important guiding voice in their organization? I don't think there's a single, like if Bob Myers wanted to dabble in the NFL, an NFL team should hire Bob Myers. That's how good he is at running organizations, at setting a tone. From Allen. What happens if Klay Thompson's contract isn't extended? Klay will be a very hot topic at the next trade deadline. Yes, he will be. Yes, he will be. Again, if Klay isn't in the let's talk about a hometown discount level of conversation, next year could be Klay Thompson's last year in a Warriors uniform, but I don't know anyone who's going to turn around and give him the max the way that he's been playing. Sporticus again. Bob doesn't come across as a glory or money hound. If he's looking for new challenges, they're here now with the Warriors. Unless he's looking outside of the NBA, I don't get the motivation to leave. Well, again, I don't think he's necessarily motivated to leave as much as he might be motivated to just do something else now. You know, I didn't think Theo Epstein was going to be motivated to leave the Golden State or the Boston Red Sox, but he did, and then he cemented himself as one of the greatest GMs of all time when he won a title with the Chicago Cubs. He ended the two longest curses in baseball. I'm not saying Bob wants to go end the Clipper curse, but if Steve Ballmer, who is moving into a new arena, has a ridiculous amount of cash to throw around at everyone and everything, and will, never say no to luxury tax bills, as Joe Lacob is maybe prepared to start saying no. Maybe an equity stake. Look, an equity stake in an NBA team? That is, for a man who's already made generational wealth, that is multiple generations of wealth. It could be a media career. Like I said, he might be hired to go run Amazon Sports Division, or Omaha Productions, or he's probably too big to just go and run the Pat McAfee show. So let's not assume that that's what's going to be next. Joe Schmo says, I'm on Damon's wiki and see if we need to update it. So I can honestly say I have never tweaked a single thing in my Wikipedia page. I have no idea who does. I have no idea who has ever updated that. I've never typed a single thing into it, not once. I've never updated it. Jillian's never updated it. Maybe my agent has. I don't know. I think it's just all fans. I don't know. I do not know how that happens. So Joe Schmo, you're now in charge. Go ahead and get that right. Oh, I'm not saying this is a vote against Trey Lance, but True Blue Forever says, bring on Darnold. Look, I just think that Sam Darnold has a skill set that is more coveted in the system that is run by Kyle Shanahan than the skill sets that are still to be determined from Trey Lance. Nepo Kyle is QB1. Fish and chips. I will say this. Kyle very much thinks himself as the star of his own offense. And I'm not even saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. But he just wants it done the way he wants it done, and he doesn't want anyone deviating outside of, okay, so you had to run away from a sack and you had to improvise a little bit. But he just wants as I was telling Larry Krueger last night when we were doing a home and home on his channel. By the way, go check that out. That was fun. Larry and I talked about our fathers, about our influence that our families have had on us. At the very beginning of that, it was a very natural conversation that I think you'd all appreciate hearing. But I just think that, as I told Larry last night, Kyle wants to run his kitchen like a chef. And the only thing he wants to hear from all of his sous chefs, which include the players and the GM and the assistant coaches, is, yes, chef. Just, yes, chef. Just do what I tell you to do. Right up into the moment that you can't, and then let your skills take over. But in the meantime, do what I tell you to do. That's what I think he wants. I've always said the show is streamlined. I never really want to take it deep over an hour. We're going to do some extended, longer shows, though, I think on the weekend. I think we're going to do some Sunday night hangouts as I figure out how to continue growing the Plus Army, which, by the way, today eclipsed, I believe. Let me see where we are here. Hold on. I gotta balance the blackened sign like an old kitchen telephone here on my shoulder as I talk into it. Where are we now? Where are we now in terms of subscribers? Yeah, over 5,450 subscribers. I thank all of you on YouTube very, very much for subscribing. That is coming a long way in a short amount of time, but we obviously got longer ways to go. We got algorithms to satisfy and things like that. So we might be doing some longer extended weekend hangout shows because apparently the number one day on YouTube is Sundays, and that's a day that I've been taking off. So maybe we're going to have to hop on and hang out a little bit, and then obviously come football season, we're going to be rolling on Sundays. Thank you very much to The Hughes, who got a super sticker. Yay! Lifting weights, a pair lifting weights, saying keep it up is what that super sticker is. I don't even know what a super sticker is, but thank you very much. Let's see. What else do we have as we are rounding to the final stretch here? How about Laura? I miss the A's glory days of Ricky Henderson, Dennis Eckersley, Canseco. It was such a fun time over there. Larry and I talked about this last night. When I first moved out to the Bay Area, the Giants so thoroughly crushed me when I was a kid in 1989, rooting for the Cubs. That NLCS made me like, I don't think I can ever root for the Giants, but I do kind of want to adopt a team here. So I adopted the A's, and the A's were Jason Giambi, Jason Isringhausen, and Miguel Tejada, and Eric Chavez, and Terrence Long, and the big three and the pitching staff. Like, they were fantastic. And they won at home all the time. Marco, clap, clap, Scudero. That's like one of the greatest things I ever heard in a stadium. They were easy to root for. They were accessible. I didn't have a car. It was easy to BART over there. I'd go on Dollar Wednesdays, pay a couple bucks to walk in, get dollar hot dogs. It was awesome. Again, what the A's were, what they could have been, what they might have been, and what they are now, it's just so disgusting. It's disgusting, and I hope that everything in John Fisher's life is ruined somehow in some way. R.I.P. Rip Cougar Rebel. Am I supposed to say Rip Cougar or R.I.P.? You let me know. But Rip Cougar Rebel. I'm going to go. I think it's maybe Rip Cougar Rebel. I think Larry's been saying it right this whole time, and I've been getting it wrong. He said he really enjoyed us last night. Great stories about both your dads. Rest in, and now there's an R.I.P. Rip. There you go. So there you go. Now that I know that you spell R.I.P. with all capitals, I'm going to assume it's Rip Cougar Rebel. So I think I got that right now. Sharks Bob. Damon's found his special purpose. Is that a What about Bob reference, I think? Or I don't know. What else we got here? Lot of love. What does he say? Swear more people on here. So there are new names on here every day. There are new people slipping into this chat room and picking up the show every day. And if you are new, again, hit that subscribe button. Again, we are at 5,452 subscribers. Really good for 2 months. I want to be at 9 million as fast as possible, please. Again, millionth subscriber gets a pony. I'm not kidding. Maybe one of those you don't know what you got until it's gone. Alan, thank you very much. 95.7 listeners are now realizing just how good Damon and Ratto were now that they're gone. Yeah, I think you speak for an awful lot of people. And then Rip again says they knew all along. Yeah, people did know, but a level of appreciation, yeah, I think it is. It's happening. Let's see. We got Aussie Rules saying, can Myers going to the Clippers under Ballmer get a percentage of ownership? Draymond going to the Lakers to be buddy-buddy with LeBron? Who will eventually own a team with Draymond invited into the ownership group? Maybe. We know that Draymond wants to be maybe a GM one day. He certainly has done more to assist Bob or be around Bob in, roster construction. And he is one of those guys who has been sitting there in every war room that Bob Myers has been in. And again, that just shows you that Bob totally understands that you got to keep your players happy. You know how many GMs would be comfortable with players just sitting around and talking in their war rooms? Not many. A lot of guys would say, this is my job. Your job is to go play. Shut up and dribble, if you will. Bob Myers is the opposite of that. The kind of guy who, again, I really do, I think it's perfectly said. You don't know how good you got it until it's gone. It's like that girlfriend you might have broken up with. Oh, hold on. Update. Damon, no, you were right. Larry's wrong. It is R.I.P. Cougar Rebel. I love when I get something right. Thank you very, very much. Now I know. Oh, people are already requesting sound bites. Damon, bring back the pound it, pound it, pound it sound bite again. Daddy might have some new toys for you soon. Daddy might have some new toys. Damon will take over the sports world. We are all witnesses. Thank you very much, Layer 2 Chains. We're out here trying. Yeah, everyone used to think, Damon, you've always been an A's hater. No, Damon actually said the A's were better than the Giants on KNBR when he was doing. Yes, he did. And they were. They absolutely were at the time. Oh, bringing it together. Pound it out. R.I.P. Cougar Reb. Thank you very much. Boy, I appreciate you guys for tuning in today. You gals for tuning in today. Thank you so much. You mean so much to me. And Jillian for being here. Tonight, something that means an awful lot to me, are the Guardsmen. We raise money for Bay Area. Yeah, we run money for a drug cartel. No, we raise money for Bay Area at-risk youth. We are one of the oldest serving charities in San Francisco. Tonight is the sports auction. I'm going to be emceeing that. So I'm going to go work on that. And that's what I'm doing tonight. Whatever you're doing tonight, enjoy it with an Ike sandwich, with a glass of blackened whiskey. Go neat on the rocks, whatever nice for you. Enjoy the basketball tonight. Big game, Lakers, Nuggets, game 2, and there is no baseball. No baseball on either side of the Bay Bridge to pull you away from that tonight. So I really appreciate you tuning in. Enjoy your evening. Have a good one. And I'm just going to tell you that you don't have to go home. You don't need to. But you can't stay here. Thanks so much for tuning in.